వింగ్ కమాండర్ అభినందన్ క్షేమంగా తిరిగొస్తారని తాము భావిస్తున్నట్లు కాంగ్రెస్ సీనియర్ నేత సల్మాన్ ఖుర్షీద్ చెప్పారు. జెనీవా చట్టాన్ని గౌరవించి అతన్ని పాకిస్తాన్ విడిచిపెట్టాలన్నారు. అభినందన్ పట్ల పాక్ ఆర్మీ వ్యవహరించిన తీరు సరిగా లేదన్నారు ఖుర్షీద్.
वीर नौजवान पायलट के साथ खड़े होने का है, वो किस स्थिति में है और जो हम लोगों ने देखा है, कुछ क्लिप्स देखे हैं, उससे ये लगता है कि उसके साथ कुछ समय तक तो व्यवहार बहुत अच्छा नहीं हुआ और अगर ऐसा है तो बहुत अत्यंत दुख का विषय है और मैं मानता हूँ कि ये पाकिस्तान पर एक और नया प्रश्न चिन्ह लगेगा कि वो मानवता का उल्लंघन कर रहे हैं. रही बात जिनीवा कन्वेंशन की, उस पर सरकार जो भी संभव है वो सरकार करेगी. इसका जो असल दबाव होता है वो नैतिक दबाव होता है और वो नैतिक दबाव पाकिस्तान समझेगा नहीं समझेगा इस पर मैं मानता हूँ कुछ कहना बड़ा संभव नहीं है. लेकिन बहरहाल जो भी है, आज पूरा देश ये चाहेगा कि वो नौजवान हमारे देश को और अपने घर को वापस लौटे और हम पूरी तरह
India has also handed over a dossier to the Pakistani High Commission in which there is enough evidence about the way in which the Jaish-e-Mohammed was involved in the attack on Pulwama. So I think if India is able to prevail upon Pakistan to act in the manner that it desires, there would be some movement. If that doesn't happen, I think the Cabinet Committee on Security would have perhaps looked at other options, because India should not end up in a situation where the de-escalation process, as everybody is talking about, is pursued without getting a firm action on the Pakistani side. Because then I think India would be in a very awkward position in terms of dealing with the challenge of terror, because even if the current situation perhaps is quote-unquote de-escalated, the challenge of terrorism remains for India. As we've said earlier, in the recent past, if we just talk about the last 10 years, India has gone through the experience of Mumbai in 2008, an act whose responsibility was claimed by the Lashkar-e-Taiba. In February 2019, we have Pulwama, an act whose responsibility has been claimed by the Jaish-e-Mohammed. Both these groups operate from Pakistan. So, after this incident and the Indian response, if Pakistan does not act in the way that India is seeking and expecting, and we allow the situation to de-escalate, then I think India would really be would be caught between two stools, because it's quite likely that Pakistan might come to the conclusion that its military response has again deterred India, and therefore they can continue to support the terror activity. So this is what I mean by saying that you fall between two stools, and I don't think that would be a desirable long-term objective for India, and that is what I think needs to be thought through very carefully. You know, the statement by Prime Minister Imran Khan is a normative statement. Now, any use of trans-border military capability, whether we talk from the upper end of the spectrum or the lower end of the spectrum, a fighter aircraft, a missile, a nuclear capability, all of these come with enormous destructive consequences. And Mr. Imran Khan, as Prime Minister, was talking to his people and yes, making a statement that I would describe as normative. But I think we also need to see the context, which is that Pakistan cannot get away with this particular perception that Mr. Imran Khan comes across as the equivalent of the good cop, while you have the bad cop, which is Rawalpindi, and the army generals continue to support terrorism. Now that is not tenable for any country, let alone India. So I think this is where the global community also has to review what is happening. And can we allow a country with nuclear weapons, in this case Pakistan, to continue supporting terror groups? The whole world knows this. And then expect that a country like India, that has been attacked not once but many times, will continue to absorb these attacks, and everybody talks about de-escalation and the fact that there is a nuclear capability. So therefore India would consider again objectively as to what are its next options or what are the steps it could possibly take to again convey this resolve of India. It is a undesirable situation in terms of what could be the military consequences, but perhaps it is becoming inevitable. So I think these are the consequences that India has to also very carefully arrive at a cost benefit analysis for the long term, because the challenge for India is the scourge of terrorism. As I said, we've been dealing with it in many ways for more than 20 years. One can go back to January 1990, what happened in Jammu and Kashmir when the Kashmiri Pandits were forced to leave the valley. And I often say that the Indian state abdicated then, and therefore we are paying a very heavy price. And in between we have embedded December 1999, when the same Masood Azhar was allowed to leave from a jail in India because the Indian investigative and judicial process about terrorism was not able to deal with him. So these are the anomalies that India also has to address.